Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Have you ever wondered how people actually learn new languages over time? Like, what is really happening inside someone's brain, and how can we study it? New study dives deep into exactly that. They looked at tons of research about how people learn second languages by studying their language use over long periods. It's like being a detective for language learning, tracking clues as they appear and change. So what did these language detectives do? Well, they went through a huge number of studies, more than 100, that all looked at how people learn languages over time. Think of it like gathering all the crime scene photos to see a bigger picture of what happens during language learning. They wanted to see how researchers are studying this, what kinds of data they collect, and how they analyze it all. The big idea behind this kind of research is that instead of just looking at a snapshot of different learners at one moment, they follow the same people for months or even years. This lets them see how language skills truly grow and change, not just guess based on comparing different groups. It's like watching a plant grow from a seed to a flower, rather than just looking at a bunch of plants at different stages of growth. Now, doing this kind of time travel research on language learning isn't easy. The researchers point out some major challenges. For one, deciding when and how often to check in on learners is tricky. Do you check in every week, every month, every year? How long should the whole study last? There is a balancing act between getting enough good information and making the study practically possible to do. Another big head-scratcher is how to collect language samples. Should learners do the exact same writing prompt or speaking task every time? If they do, they might just get good at the task itself, not necessarily at the language. But if you change the tasks all the time, it is hard to know if differences in their language are because they learned more or because the new task was easier or about a different topic. This is like trying to measure someone's running speed, but sometimes giving them a downhill track and sometimes an uphill one. And then Therese, the math. When you are tracking changes over time for individuals, regular math tools like simple averages might not cut it. You need more advanced methods to really understand the patterns of growth and individual differences. So, what did the review find about how this research is actually being done? Well, it is definitely growing. The number of studies published recently is way higher than in the past. This shows that more and more researchers are recognizing the value of watching language learning unfold. Most of the studies looked at adult learners, which makes sense given how many universities offer language programs. But that also means we might not know as much about how kids or teenagers learn languages in these studies. When it comes to how many people are in these studies, it's pretty mixed. About half had 30 or more people, and about half had fewer than 30. For really solid conclusions, especially about individual differences, more people are often better. Now, let's talk about time. This is where things get interesting. Many studies lasted between 6 to 12 months, but there was a big mix of study lengths. However, the big takeaway here is that often the amount of time between checking in on learners, the observation interval, was quite long. And importantly, more than half of the studies only collected data at 2 to 4 different points in time. Think about watching a plant grow. If you only look at it twice, you might see it is a seed and then it is a small plant, but you miss all the stages in between. This means that many studies might not be able to see the shape of the learning curve, just whether a change happened. When it comes to what kind of language they collected, writing is a bit more common than speaking, but both are used a lot. And English is by far the most studied second language, which is understandable, but it does mean we might need more studies on other languages to get a complete picture. For tasks, writing essays or reports was super common. For these, researchers often used the Sami genre approach, where students wrote similar kinds of things each time. This is a way to try and keep the tasks comparable without repeating the exact same one. Remember that tricky problem of making sure tasks are fair. One way to do this is called counterbalancing, where you switch the order of different tasks for different people. But guess what? This review found it was used in almost no studies. This suggests that keeping tasks truly comparable across time is still a major challenge. On the analysis side, things are getting more high-tech. Most studies use computers to help analyze the language data, which makes sense given how much data these studies collect. And the math is getting more sophisticated too. A lot more studies are using advanced statistics that are better suited for looking at changes over time. The star player here is something called linear mixed effects models. Sounds fancy, right? Basically, these models are really good at handling the complexity of data from the same people measured multiple times, accounting for both what is common across everyone and what is unique to each person. It's like being able to see the forest and the trees at the same time. And this trend towards more advanced math is especially strong in the most recent studies, which is great news for understanding language learning better. Now, what does all this mean? The researchers found that while the field is growing and becoming more sophisticated in its analysis, the design of studies, especially when it comes to the timing of observations, still has a lot of room for improvement. Often, studies seem to be scheduled around semesters or academic years, rather than when a learner is expected to actually make a linguistic breakthrough. This reliance on academic calendars can limit what we can learn. If a feature is expected to change over a full academic year, but you only check in twice, you might miss the actual learning process. The fact that so many studies only have 2 or 3 data points is a big limitation. It is like asking if your plant grew, but not being able to describe how it grew. Was it a steady climb or a sudden burst? And with nearly half the studies having fewer than 30 people, it can be tough to really get at those individual differences in how people learn. So, what is the big picture takeaway? The authors suggest a few key priorities for the future of this research. First, they really want researchers to align their observation schedules, meaning when and how often they collect data, with what we know about how languages are actually learned. Don't just follow the school year. Second, be super clear about your timing. If you don't report how long the study lasted or how often you collected data, it's hard for others to understand or even try to repeat your work. Third, when designing tasks, have a good reason for why you're choosing that task and how it's supposed to measure language learning. Don't just pick a task because it is easy to give. Fourth, match your analysis tools to your data. If you're using super advanced software, make sure your study design is set up to take full advantage of it. And finally, keep using those advanced statistical models that are built for tracking change over time. Honestly, this study is super important because it shines a light on how we study language learning. It's like getting a report card for the entire field of longitudinal corpus-based second language studies. It shows us where we're doing great, like with more sophisticated analysis, but also where we need to focus our efforts to get even better. The data collected is valuable, but making sure the way it is collected and analyzed truly captures the dynamic process of language learning is key. Imagine if we could better understand how people learn languages, we could create much more effective learning tools and strategies for everyone. This research is a great reminder that even though we have amazing tools, we always need to think critically about how we design our studies to get the most accurate and meaningful answers about how humans learn and grow. What do you guys think about these findings? Are you learning a second language? What challenges have you faced? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.